What is up, everybody? So I'm going to be showing you how to use type or typography in order to quickly create very interesting modern looking layouts in today's video. Now, if you haven't yet, check out DesignCourse.com, make sure to subscribe, and let's get started. Now wait one moment, if you're interested in UI design, you might also be interested in front-end development. If that's the case, you should definitely check out the sponsor of this video, Scrimba.com. They've recently launched their front-end development career path, which is a collection of courses that cover HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and much, much more, as you see. It's over 75 hours of awesome content. There are hundreds of interactive coding challenges, and it's all geared towards helping you go from beginner to someone that's hireable as a front-end developer. So click on the top link here in the YouTube description to get access to Scrimba.com and the front-end developer career path for 10% off. All right, here I am in Figma. Let's go ahead and get started with the new frame, and I'm just gonna choose desktop because I want, you know, a big area that we can design for. It would be an entirely different I guess you could say video or conversation if we're talking about making things responsive in this regard. But so let's just focus here on a nice big desktop sort of resolution. Now first, I want a lot of contrast between the canvas background and our frame, so I'm just gonna take that and make it a almost black. And let's get started. So the way I approach, you know, this type of technique is just to get on a big headline of some sort. So what I mean headline is just you know, like a single sentence, a few words, and make it large and see what happens. So I'm just gonna left click here. We're gonna say take a stroll in the park today. All right. So let's just immediately bump this up to like 120. And I'm gonna get pop-ins out for this one. We'll use a serif font for the next one. We're gonna do two examples. All right, and so here's our huge text. Maybe that's a little bit too big. Let's just do 100. And the way we start with this, of course, you could put everything on, you know, a single line, which is completely fine. There's no objective versus, you know, in terms of, you know, being objectively right or wrong. So a lot of this is all up to you, but we could take this and we can push it in, and now we can really start defining a layout. So if you look at this type in and of itself, you're probably looking at it and you're thinking to yourself that this doesn't really feel like a layout. It actually has defined a invisible column. All right, so when you think about layouts, really all they are is just kind of rectangles. Or if you look at it in a different aspect, they're kind of just a series of columns and rows. And how those columns and rows are defined, they could be explicit, you know, through actual lines or shapes like rectangles, or they could be defined by type. And so what I mean here, if I hit Control-R to get our rulers out and I drag over a column right here, we can see one has been defined right here by the left justification of this type. And so that's kind of where my thought process is going with this. It's also defined some rows. So here's a row. We could bring in another one down here. And so we can take these sort of invisible lines right there. They're obviously not invisible because we have the rulers out right now, but they are invisible in a sense because they're defined by the type itself, and we can start to play off of that when we're building out the rest of the layout. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna make this nice and bold. All right, so pop-ins comes in a bunch of different weights. All right, and I'm probably gonna make this smaller. So I'm gonna take this down, and how you do the number of words that you have per line will really help shape the layout itself. So if you did something like this, all right, you have a lot of white space. What are you gonna do down here? However, if we pull it in, okay, now we have less white space. Maybe we could center this. Now we don't have to do anything, but then there's white space over here. So how are we going to, you know, structure our type? You know, how we structure our type will really help influence the layout itself. So I'm gonna put this right up here. Maybe I'm gonna take the leading down just a bit, make them a little bit closer. All right, so if we start up here, we'll say we'll kind of put this maybe right around here. Let's say we want to have a 2-column approach as well. So this is a column, and if we go Control R again, we'll go right here, and we'll just find a column right there. All right, and let's also get rid of these. All right, so here's our first column. Let's have something over here as well. All right, so let's do another piece of type. We'll just duplicate that, Control D. And for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and just copy and paste some type I already had off here to the side. All right, and we'll drag this in. Remember, you don't really want to put your type or any other elements for the most part right up against the edge of your frame. You want to have things, especially when it comes to type, you want to have a nice, room to breathe, so to speak. All right, so we're gonna put this right here, and we're gonna make this one start on this row that begins right there. So these are both gonna be in line with each other in terms of this row. All right, now there's also been another column defined here by the left of this type. So if I get our Control R, we could put one right there, and then maybe one right here. Okay, so now at this point, let's get some an actual paragraph of type. So let's do like size 17 or 16. Let's do 17. All right, and then also let's take, we'll make this regular, and then also change this to auto, and pull this all the way down. And I'm gonna use a plugin with it selected called Lorem Ipsum. You guys can install that as well, it's free, auto generate. All right, and there we go. So now we can go ahead and kind of just separate these into multiple different, well, actually we could probably just, yeah, let's just have 3 of them. So let's get rid of that. Okay, now if we hit Shift R to get rid of those, we can now see we have a 2-column layout that's taken shape. And it looks nice because we have good white space between our elements all around, and also we're adhering to those kind of invisible columns and rows that have been established really with the help primarily of the headline here. All right, so let's see, we could also put something down here. We could put more type, we could put a lot of different things. Let's put an icon. So I'm gonna get out our Iconify. Let's just do a right arrow. All right, so let's put, let's just use this one. So we'll drag that here. Now again, we're going to make sure we're aligning things to our columns. All right, Shift R. Let's also maybe add a big, huge typographic watermark. All right, so we'll take this and we'll just put the word stroll. We're gonna make it large, like 400. All right, now this is obviously way too much contrast. Let's also give this let's give it a little bit of a background color instead of just making it pure white. So let's come out here, kind of like a beige. And then we'll take this, we'll hit I, and we'll grab the same background color and then just make it a little bit darker. And then we'll right click and send it back. All right, so yeah, maybe we'll put something like right around there. Or we could all caps lock it, stroll. I'll just put strolling, and that way it kind of goes all the way across. All right, so if we hit Shift R, we could add something up here possibly even. Let's just have fun with it. What we could do is get that back. We'll get a rectangle, and then we will right click and go to Unsplash, which is another plugin, and I'll just type in park. All right, so let's just choose a picture of a park, Shift R. Maybe we'll bring these down just a bit. Oh, remember, if we're gonna move this, we might wanna have to move that as well up over here, or we could just move this up. All right, there we go. So yeah, that's one layout that we've created. And again, if you think this is a little bit too much contrast, we can just take the opacity down. There we go. And there we go. We've created a real simple, very nice looking typographic based layout with 2 columns. Let's do another example just so you can kind of get more muscle memory here. So if I come back here to our frame and we get our desktop, actually, you know what we'll do? I'll just Shift and Alt and drag that to the right. Let's get rid of all this. This time let's use kind of like a bluish background. Maybe right around there, that'll work. All right, so for this one, let's go ahead and let's do Playfair Display, which is a nice, elegant sort of serif font. So I'm gonna put a fancy type of layout. All right, so let's have fun with this one. Let's make this white. We might wanna make this darker in the background, but we'll mess with that later. So let's do Playfair Display. Now this is bold. I'm not sure if I like that. Let's just do regular, okay? Now let's drag this in and see what kind of shape we end up getting. Oh, so this is kind of like a square, the way it is situated, the way it's situated now. Now I kind of do want this to be larger, so I'm going to make this 120 instead of 73. Here we go. And then I also want to really increase this. I want a good amount of space between, so we have like a high degree of leading here. Let's take this background though and make it a little bit darker so we have more contrast. All right. And we could do things like, you know, we can even put smaller type in between the negative space of these 3 lines. That could be interesting. So, you know, a lot of this is just having fun and experimenting, but you want to mind your layout fundamentals. You want to mind your columns and your rows. So let's do It's Time to Level Up. These are going to be a lot smaller. Maybe we'll put it right here, smack dab in the center. It's time to level up your layout game. All right, so that looks kind of cool. I mean, I think it looks cool. All right, so let's hit Shift R, and oh, the other ones kind of followed along naturally. Let's move this over here. So here's a column that's been defined just by that single type element. So let's get those off here. All right, so let's think about what else could we do. Now remember, if we bring back these rulers, we have a column or a row that's established right here. So we could play off of that. We could get the line tool, and I'll just create a line right here. Let's make it white. So look how nice that is. It's just a single line, but it seems to flow well. Why? Because the top of this type kind of is its own row. It's kind of established that, and we've kind of explicitly demonstrated that with a single 1 pixel white border, so to speak. So you could do that, and then we could put some type here underneath. So let's put tried and true, tried and true methods. Whatever, I'm just coming up with stupid type here. All right. This time I want to use a different font. It'll be serif as well, but it's called Isar. There we go. And then we'll maybe also come out here and we'll have some more. Let's just change this to auto, and let's make this about 18, and let us use the lorem ipsum auto generate that. So look at this. Look how nice this looks already, just with this amount of type. This, like, I'm almost ready to say this is good enough, but we're gonna have a lot more fun with it though. So let's do something more interesting with the background as well. So when you're dealing with background elements or giving it, I call it texture, there's many different ways to do that. You could put like a photograph watermark background. You can do like just rectangles. We'll take the rectangle approach. So we'll take the rectangle here and let's put it kind of like just cutting off the middle. So I call this kind of breaking out of the bounds or breaking out of the box. or thinking outside of the box. You can call it whatever you want. But if you have a low contrast background element, you can do this sort of thing. So let's first send this to the back. All right, we're going to take our eye and we're going to get the same color, so now we can't see the difference. But now we're just going to add either tint, which is adding lightness, or we can add shade, which is adding darkness. So I just made it a little bit darker, and that makes it a little bit more interesting of a layout, doesn't it? I think so. So this is with it without, and here is it with it. And I really like that. So you don't always have to destructure your layout clearly in the bounds of your columns and rows that have been created. If this is low contrast, obviously this right here is very low contrast compared to this, although it's different enough to where you can notice it. If you have type sitting on top of it, it doesn't matter where you put this. You're still easily able to read the type. There's no issues there. Now we could just go like explicit and like put it like in between here. I mean, you could do that, but I kind of like this approach as well. All right, so we could keep on playing with this idea of changing up, or not changing up, but kind of like reinforcing these invisible rows and columns. So we can duplicate this over here. Let's push this right here. All right, so we've kind of just continued this row going all the way off to the side. That's kind of interesting. This type of fancy sort of typographic layout, you could also do vertical text. So we'll put something like September 21. All right, we could put that over here. All right, so that's kind of interesting. Maybe we make it smaller. All right. We could also experiment with adding color. Maybe we'll make this dark and we'll have a lighter color back here. We don't have to use a line here. We could take a rectangle, right click, send to back. And I really like this sort of beige color. It goes well with this blue here. And then we'll take this stuff. We can make it black, although we can experiment with that in a little bit. Let's pull this down a little bit. Maybe we'll duplicate this. Now, as you can see, we're just kind of having fun playing with rectangles. Let's create some paragraphs here. Maybe we'll take this blue color here. Now, clearly this is not enough contrast, so we'll make it darker. There we go. I kind of like that. All right. What else? Let's bring back our rulers and see. Okay, so we've created another 2-column layout. Now, if I hit, if I bring over another guide here, we can kind of see the extent of this second column here. And so we could put something up here that maybe fits within this area. So hit Control R. Let's right click, plugins, and iconify. Let's choose social. So I already did this before. I just chose 3 different icons. Maybe there's like an icon bar up here. Let me copy and paste that off screen. All right, so where are we gonna put this? Let's Shift R. We can just right align it to this column right here and then kind of center it between this available space. So Shift R. All right. And there we go. As you can see, it's just a fun way. Maybe I'll take this real quick. I'll take all these. There we go. I wanted to have it centered between here and here, like an equal amount of white space. And there you go. So we've created 2 interesting sort of layouts very quickly. And the technique, of course, involves using your headline, really, to help this establish the starting point of your layouts. All right, everybody, hopefully you found that interesting. Like I said, you can have a lot of fun with this and experiment, and I would love to see what you create. Just mention me on Twitter. Check out my Twitter handle here in the YouTube description, and I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.